And here we are. Welcome to the Right Hook. I am Steve Hook. It is a joy to be with you again. As you know, we do the show every Wednesday and Friday right here or wherever you're watching us. So we invite you to follow us over on X America News on X. And of course, on my Facebook page, it's up right now. A whole bunch of different platforms. Don't forget when you go to Rumble as well and follow us on X America News there as well. So you can find us just about anywhere, but it's good to be with you. I got to tell you, by the way, I just want to mention this right out of the gate. We were not on the air Wednesday. No big deal. We're going to get through that. It was a massive technical glitch. It has since been sorted, and that shan't happen again. I don't believe. So it's good to be with you. We'll be with you every Wednesday and Friday for the foreseeable future. Today, I got to tell you, when I initially was planning the show, this is long before the Oval Office meltdown. Uh, I had a theme in mind, and that was basically the loss of the megaphone from the media and the left, because now it's just nothing but megaphone, right? But they have had uh, uh, for lack of a better word, a monopoly on the narrative and the agenda for so damn long, and you can tell they really don't quite know how to get it back, and they're dipping back into the old identity politics. The Trump is Hitler. The latest is Elon Musk is Hitler. Elon Musk and Trump is Hitler. JD Vance, he might be Hitler. There's no doubt about it, though, that Elon and Trump are definitely Hitler. And the others are just Hitler to a lesser degree. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll we'll kind of underscore how this has been played out over the years here, and how futile that idiocy is. Today in the Oval Office, Volodymyr Zelensky, decided to show up dressed as a third-rate Central American hard leftist guerrilla general, dressed in, I guess, what can only be described as paramilitary looking gear. Some people say, "Well, he's trying to project that he's a commander in chief in the time of war," and blah blah blah. At this point, it's about respect. Um, there wasn't a lot of respect shown by Zelensky to President Trump. And this precedes today, by the way. Zelensky has been popping off against Trump for a while now. Uh, you know, Many will remember that back in October, and J.D. Vance made sure to point this out in the Oval today. Back in October, Zelensky had time to check out of the war for a while and flew to Pennsylvania and, pardon me, and campaigned with Kamala Harris. So Zelensky's game is pretty obvious. We want money, we want weapons. It doesn't matter that Zelensky is in a war that he can never win. That doesn't matter. He will conscript as much cannon fodder from the ranks of his young men and even boys as he needs to keep the cash flowing. It's pretty pathetic to watch. And the problem with this is the ones that are screaming the loudest about how Trump was just so disrespectful to Zelensky are the ones that once upon a time used to be the champions of peace. Over 1 million people have died in this war so far, folks. Probably double that. The Western audiences of most media outlets have no clue the carnage that has taken place inside Ukraine and even inside parts of Russia, mostly Ukraine, obviously. They have no clue the carnage that's taken place. Millions have died, at least 1 million, probably millions. And for what? That's the question. This isn't about being on Putin's side. This is about looking at something and saying, okay, they can never win. Ukraine cannot win this war on their own. You can shovel as much money down the Ukraine gullet as they want, and it's not going to change the outcome because Putin's not going to stop. Putin is not going to stop until he has a reason to stop. Trump was trying to provide that reason. We'll make a deal with you, sue for peace, and then we'll end this thing, and then people on both sides can stop dying, and we can negotiate a peace deal. And that's what the plan was. Now, the media turns this around and says, well, now, wait a minute. Trump just wants their minerals and their rare earth. That's all he wants. He doesn't give a rip about it. That's garbage. FDR, by the way, did the same exact thing in World War II. So it's a garbage argument. It's not one based on history. Trump said the other day, hey, look, if we go in there with our guys, we're going to be doing a lot of digging. We're going to be digging up for some rare earths and minerals that we need. And that's a great way for Ukraine to help pay off the billions and hundreds of billions of dollars we've already shoveled in. And just the very fact that we're going to have U.S. presence on the ground and they're working, that will be deterrent enough for Putin. But as if that weren't enough, wait, there's more. European nations have agreed. France, the UK, I don't know about Germany yet. They're kind of a tricky one, but certainly France and the UK, and probably Germany, if we're honest, had agreed to send peacekeepers in there. Not NATO, mind you, but just a peacekeeping force. Ukraine is not a NATO member state. This history goes way back. It precedes Trump. It precedes Biden. Remember back in 2014, Putin was raising the point that if you guys continue to push for Ukraine membership into NATO, we will consider that an act of aggression. Now, I have no love lost for Vladimir Putin. He's a thug. He's a dictator. He's killed people, not just in war, but people that have disagreed with him. He's not a good guy. But how is Zelensky much better is what I'm asking you right now. He's not. What strategic interest does the United States have in this? Well, surely not as much as Germany does. Certainly not as much as France does, or any of the EU for that matter. Ukraine has been the single most corrupt nation of the former Soviet bloc nations. Ukraine is hands down the most corrupt. It's been corrupt for a long time. And that corruption, by the way, has seeped into the U.S. Just ask several members of the Biden family. Maybe Lindsey Graham can comment on that. Maybe Mitt Romney can comment. Maybe Mitch McConnell. Maybe his wife, Elaine Chao. Maybe they can comment on some of the grift that has been happening inside Ukraine. In fact, during the Biden reign of error, I posited more than a few times on my own socials that, hey, this war seems to be about covering up a lot of the grift that's been going on more than anything else. And I still stand by that. There's a lot of people inside the Beltway that do not want Ukraine to fall, and they do not want their secrets to be revealed to the world, which is, guess what? They made lots and lots of money over this war and the run-up to it. Biden sat there and did nothing. In the run-up to the invasion from Russia, do you know how many times Joe Biden met with any Russian envoys or diplomats or Vladimir Putin himself? Zero. Not one time. All he did was say, if I had one word to say, it would be don't. Don't. How did that work out? It didn't. And now we've got carnage and, just destroyed cities. Old buildings that have been there for over 500 years, gone, reduced to rubble. We've got nothing. So Trump says, look, you're in no position to start making demands. Vance pointed out, you went to Pennsylvania in October talking about election interference. I don't know that I ever remember a time that any world leader came and campaigned for a presidential nominee. I don't remember any time that's ever happened. Not in my lifetime. It certainly hasn't. Maybe it has, but I don't remember it. But I damn sure remember Volodymyr Zelensky going to Pennsylvania to stand side by side with Kamala. He knew, rightly so, it should be pointed out, that if Kamala Harris won, that the money spigot would just stay wide open. We would just send them blank checks. And so he played that card. Stupid card that he played. And it backfired on him. Then he comes to the White House today and starts acting as if No, we want peace. You should give us weapons. You should give us millions and millions and billions of dollars. And that's all we're going to do. And here I am looking like a little Central American despot dressed in my paramilitary outfit. It was a sight. And so Trump dressed him down in front of everybody. JD Vance dressed him down in front of everybody. Annie, can you do me a favor? Put up this slide that I presented to you, and let's take a look at this. This is the war in Ukraine. Now, this is just 2 years of support, mind you. This is almost 3 years old. So this is from 2022. You'll notice on this graph, the United States is at the very top. You'll see they've got it nice color coded there. It's all in euros, by the way. You'll notice not dollars, but it's a lot of money. Okay, so United States military donations. Now look at that dark blue line. Compare it to every other country in and around Ukraine and Europe, including some that aren't even, like the United Kingdom. But you can add all of those dark blue lines up, and it doesn't account for as much as the U.S. has spent. And again, this is back in 2022. Now let's take a look at the bright blue line. Financial support, financial aid, just basically cold hard cash. And look at where the U.S. lines up compared to all of those other countries. Starting to get the picture. The only one where Europe, and this makes sense, outspends the U.S. is in refugee care. Well, they're obviously not going to just hot-foot it to the U.S. They're in a whole ocean away from us. But that's it. So in those short 2-year period, you can say, and by the way, it should be said, we have spent billions since this graph. Okay, enough of that. You've seen it. This is why Trump is saying, why are we going to shovel more money at this problem? This isn't about liberty. This isn't about freedom. At this point, it's about stopping a war that has gone on for far too long. And you'll notice, if you've been watching the media since this whole brouhaha, who are they blaming? Of course, they're blaming Trump. It's Trump's fault. Once upon a time, the left used to be all about peace and freedom and let's stop the war. Not so much anymore because it's Trump that's trying to do it. It is absolutely astounding. But as I said in the lead up to the show before all of this crap happened, I was like, well, you know what? We'll get into the Zelensky meeting. They're just going to sign a treaty for rare earths and minerals. And it's going to be it'll be a big story, but it won't be. And then God knows what happened. And the point was, I'm just going to go on and talk about how the media and the deep state have really controlled the narrative. And now this happens. And they're trying to control the narrative again, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Where does Zelensky have to go? Where can he go? You understand that the only way that Ukraine can win this war, the only way, it's not more money, it's not more weapons, it's manpower, it's boots on the ground. And this is why Trump said, you are gambling with World War III. That's what you're doing right now, Zelensky. You're gambling with World War III. You would have U.S. boots on the ground. You would have EU boots on the ground, whether they be from France, England, Germany, wherever, the Netherlands, rope everybody in. You know what you call that? You call that a war, a world war. That would be World War III. Trump wants no part of that, except for some reason, the left and the media seem to be cheering this on as if Trump is being dictatorial. It's absurd on its face. And we need to understand that what happened today was not Trump losing his cool. It wasn't JD Vance losing his cool. It was them looking at this guy and saying, look, buddy, you're in no position whatsoever to make demands. You have been popping off at the mouth. You've been bad-mouthing President Trump even before he was President Trump. Hell, that phone call with Zelensky back in the first term. When did Zelensky ever come out and say, no, there was nothing absolutely wrong with that phone call? It was all perfectly good. We supported him. He never did. Because he saw that, well, he's lost. He's lost to Biden. So now I can just dump Trump and glom onto Joe. And Joe, of course, threw the American taxpayers' wallets on the table and said, take what you need. Here's the car keys. Go have fun. Trump comes in and says, no, no, no. There's a new daddy in town, and it's me now. And you're going to have to deal with me now. And we want all this bloodshed and utter destruction of your country to stop. So while everybody's all hot and bothered about Trump and J.D. Vance, understand this, the message was sent to Europe very clear. If you guys want to prop this guy up, that's on you. It was also very clear to Zelensky. If you want to continue to play this game, you're not going to get any money from us. You're not going to get any more weapons from us. Those days are over. In fact, Trump, shortly after the aborted meeting, he didn't even have the lunch with Zelensky. They kicked Zelensky out of the White House. They kicked him out. It was supposed to be a nice lunch between the president and the vice president, Zelensky and other, high-level officials. That never happened. That Zelensky ended up going to, that lunch rather ended up going to feed the White House staff. I'm sure they were happy about it. But it wasn't served to Vladimir. So Trump goes out on Truth Social and he posts this after this whole debacle went down. He says, it's amazing. Let me put on my glasses so I can read this. It's amazing what comes out through emotion, and I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. That's Trump. That's a leader. That's what a leader does. And I've got news for you. Zelensky is going to come back. This is negotiations played out on a public stage. This is the kind of stuff that we would normally never see. But Zelensky started kind of mouthing off in this little presser when they went to questions. And when Trump said that he was going to negotiate this peace, Zelensky was rolling his eyes, shaking his head no. Everybody in the meeting in the Oval Office saw this. J.D. Vance responded to it. Have you even said thanks once? And then it just devolved from there. But it was Zelensky that is the one with his hat in hand. And he went home with nothing. And worse than that, he went home with the assurance that, guess what? We're not getting anything from them again. So I suspect that within it's either going to be Zelensky or his replacement that will come back to the United States, and peace will happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I wouldn't be cheering Zelensky on as this big freedom fighter. He's not been a freedom fighter. He has destroyed large swaths of his own country. Multiple cities are reduced to rubble, gone, and millions dead. And he wants more weapons and more ammo and more money, and then he's going to forcibly conscript more Ukrainian men and boys to the ranks of cannon fodder. Maybe the left needs to start embracing peace again. That would be a nice change. But we've got a lot to get to today. I've got some clips to kind of underscore this point about the media and the deep state losing their megaphone. We'll get to them. And of course, we'll get to your comments. If you want to join us on the program, give us a question, comment on what you think, you agree, maybe disagree with what I'm saying here. Feel free to drop a line in the comment section. My wonder producer, Annie, will be going through and finding them all and forwarding them to me, and we will discuss that. At any rate, you're with The Right Hook. We'll be right back after this.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
All right, we want to thank our buddy Mike Lindell for this great offer that he's offering all Right Hook listeners and viewers. And by the way, man, here's a guy who, he battled his own demons younger and, when he was younger, fought through it, invents a pillow that really is remarkable, becomes a huge American success story. Then the powers that be decide that, well, this is an American empire we no longer want to support because we don't support, and they get him booted out of retail stores. But Mike and his good folks there at My Pillow in Minnesota have carried on, and they're selling as much as ever. And we would encourage you to get involved because Mike Lindell is a true patriot. He's a believer in everything that this nation is all about, and he's offering some pretty damn good deals, man. Remember to use the promo code HOOK. Call 1-800-749-7095. 800-749-7095. Drop that promo code HOOK. You get a great deal, and now you pay nothing for shipping at mypillow.com and mystore.com. Go check it out and support Mike Lindell and all of his great workers in Minnesota that provide some really, really excellent products. Okay, now, prior to the meltdown in the Oval Office, the big story of the last 48 hours has been Pam Bondi saying that she's going to release the Epstein list. And phase one, as they called it, dropped yesterday with a thud because it was basically nothing that we didn't already know. And I saw that and was like, okay, well, there's a whole bunch of blanked out pages here. There's a whole bunch of old news. There's a couple of new names, but there's not a lot. Surely this isn't the DOJ's answer to airing the dirty laundry of the Epstein case. And it's not. Bondi responded, and she said, look, well, you know what? Hell, I'll let you see what Bondi said. Annie, let's go to cut one. This is Attorney General Bondi on the stonewalling from the FBI field office in the Southern District of New York. And, well, here's what she said.
Yes, Mark. So, as you know, we released about 120 pages of documents, and I started asking for these documents right when I came into office and before Kash Patel was in there. So I ended up getting about 120 pages. We carefully redacted them, of course, to be sure the 254 young girls, women who are victims of sex crimes and sex trafficking, their personal information was redacted and out of there to protect them. So I'm going through it and I kept saying, there has to be more. There has to be more. I'm assured that's it. Kash asked the same questions. Assured there's no more. I found out, this week that a source told me New York, SDNY, they're sitting on thousands of pages of documents regarding Epstein. Thousands. And of course, you've seen the very strong letter. We will get everything. We will have it in our possession. We will redact it, of course, to protect grand jury information and confidential witnesses. But the American people have a right to know. And Donald Trump is the most transparent president in our nation's history. So not only will America get the full Epstein files, they will get JFK. They will get Martin Luther King.
Wow. Now that's a difference. There's no doubt about that. You'd never see Alejandro Mayorkas push for this stuff. So Bondi is basically saying that there's certain people inside the FBI in the Southern District of New York, and that Southern District of New York and the DOJ has always been, they just have an agenda all their own. Now that you've got Kash Patel in there, maybe some heads will start rolling. And maybe we will actually start seeing some of this. But I don't think Pam Bondi is the bad guy here. I don't think Kash Patel is the bad guy here. I think that there's a lot of bad guys and gals probably that have kind of seeded their way into the bureaucracy, uh, and they don't want this to get out. They don't want a lot of it to get out. They don't want a lot of it to get out, for some of it for good reason, because, if you publicly humiliate a major ally, for example, that's not really a good look. But they also don't want it to get out because it would publicly humiliate some of their benefactors and some of their preferred politicians, and they're covering for it. I mean, anybody remember the name Jean-Luc Brunel? I think I'm pronouncing that right. Jean-Luc Brunel was a French modeling agent or something. He had something in the fashion industry. He was also a friend of Epstein, and he was very much involved in this. In fact, he was charged and he was arrested and he was thrown in prison. And guess what happened to him? He was Epsteined. He offed himself under very, very curious circumstances. And a lot of people have questioned, kind of like, remember when Epstein died in 2019? Epstein didn't hang himself. And I don't think he did, but that's another story for another day. So the people that are the most close to this have been bumped off. Ghislaine Maxwell is still alive and in federal custody. And I bet she's kind of crossing her fingers every night before she hits the rack and saying, I hope I wake up in the morning. And I hope she does too, because she could be forced to testify again. But we'll see what happens with this. Remember, what was released yesterday was called the Epstein Files Phase 1, which implies that there's going to be more phases to come. I trust that there will be. But this is an example of the deep state trying to control the narrative. They don't want you to know this stuff. If you know this stuff, you might become a Trumper, for God's sakes, heaven forbid. You might start thinking for yourself, heaven forbid. They want you to be a part of the hive mind, like Joy Reid's former audience, part of the hive mind. CNN's audience, in large part, the hive mind. The readers that feel so erudite and vastly more intelligent than you and I, that do the Sunday crossword of the New York Times, they're part of the hive mind. And this is what they want. They want to keep the narrative the same. And there's, like I said before, speaking of Zelensky, there is a new daddy in town, and he's got a great cabinet around him. I mean, good God, just this past week, Trump names Dan Bongino the deputy, assistant deputy director of the FBI or whatever. And now all of a sudden they're really freaking out. Oh my God, Dan Bongino. So they're losing this megaphone. They're losing their platform, and they don't know how to handle it, because if it's exposed, they will never recover. And I frankly think that I don't know that the media is ever going to recover. I think I think the mainstream media has killed itself, and it's ridiculous. They have allowed their own agenda to blind them to the reality. You live in this bubble. I mean, and trust me, folks. I mean, I've known a lot of these folks. They live in this bubble where everybody thinks exactly like they do. Now you've got a cabinet and the president that view things polarly opposite. And they've got facts on their side, and they've got receipts, and they've got all of this stuff. And the left is losing it. You can hear it every time Hakeem Jeffries opens his mouth. You can hear it whenever Senator Wyden opens his mouth. You can hear it when Dick Durbin and Schumer open their mouth. They're scared. They don't know what's going to happen. God knows Adam Schiff is probably shaking in his boots. And there's Bondi telling you, hey, look, Southern District of FBI, I'm your boss. You're going to have to put up, or you're going to get fired. You're going to have to hand it over, or we're going to, not only, I would suspect that not only is the threat of job loss very much at the top of the list, but so too is prosecution, and perhaps incarceration. So soon enough, obviously Pam Bondi has been speaking to whistleblowers. She alluded to it in that clip with Mark Levin there. Several high-ranking people with that means FBI whistleblowers is what that means. And she's got the goods. But she wants the rest of the goods, which apparently reside somewhere inside the field office at the Southern District in New York, which, of course, is exactly where Epstein was held and exactly where Epstein hung himself. I mentioned CNN as kind of a laugh line more than anything else. But there's one guy at CNN that is absolutely shaking up the whole banana cart over there, and that's Scott Jennings. Andy, do I have time to play this Jennings clip? I do. Okay, good. Scott Jennings goes on CNN, and he does to this panel what you or I would love to do. Get on there and just look at him and go, are you nuts? Explain yourself, won't you? And he sits down with some of the CNN's talent, if you'll call it that, and essentially torches them. So I want you to listen to this. Scott Jennings, CNN. Go.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too small to stop Trump with whatever else is in this plan.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the government, the bureaucracy, be actively trying to stop him?
Because they want to shredding the Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship. That's why.
And no matter who is in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you all made an interesting point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility to resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually
That's
what
not
we
at all
said. We
what I
said they
said.
are
Yeah, it is.
upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
How
that we
is
have
Trump
seen.
shredding the Constitution?
My God, he's like.
I mean, seriously,
He
do we
doesn't
have to
believe in
give
the
you a
balance of
civics
power,
lesson
Scott.
that we have?
I don't know,
we put all power in the executive
How is
branch.
holding the government-
The legislative branch, the FBI. Now we're in control of the military. We're
Yes.
silencing media.
Commander-in-chief,
This
head
is
of
what
the
you
military.
do
Yes,
in a
executive power.
dictatorship.
Are you suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I am suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're
Wait,
gaslighting.
he's gonna
but when we
put-
get to the actual
he's
rubber
gonna
on the
put-
road of
I'm
this,
sorry.
it will be clear.
I'm interested in this conversation. He's going to put someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone in charge of the military?
The president is in charge of the military. That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
That's what we said. That's just straw
not what
man.
we
It's
said.
That's literally
ridiculous.
not what we said.
I'm just repeating back to you your own
I
words.
did
That's literally not what you said. What we said. That is literally exactly what you said. More to the point, that is exactly what Touré said. We want a president. We want a government that's going to stop the president from what? We've put all the power into the executive branch. The military, yes, that's called the commander-in-chief. It's been that way since, I don't know, 1786. He's commanding the law enforcement. Yeah, that's the DOJ. That falls under the auspices of the executive branch. Yes, it does. You know how Biden used the DOJ to go after Trump. Remember that, Touré? You remember that? You remember how Biden used the FBI to raid Mar-a-Lago? Remember that, Touré? You didn't have a problem with the executive power then, did you, Touré? Scott Jennings just shreds him. And understand this, Scott Jennings used to work for George H.W. Bush. Scott Jennings used to work for Mitch McConnell. It's not like he's some far-right bomb thrower, but you get anyone on CNN that even has a teaspoonful of common sense, and he looks like a rabid right-winger because all of them are rabid left-wingers. So it's pretty funny and amusing. It's like watching a cat play with a mouse when Scott Jennings is on these panel shows. He just toys with them. And you see all their eyes are like, what? Are you questioning? Do you need a civics lesson? Torre, you need a civics lesson. What a clown. What a clown that entire panel was, with the exception of Scott Jennings. Now, I don't know who's going to last longer, Scott Jennings or Torre or the rest of them. CNN is obviously trying to at least tack back a little bit to the middle, but until they get rid of this clown car full of nuts, nobody's going to watch them anymore. The only reason I watch CNN is to see highlights of Scott Jennings destroying them. Trump has done zero to tear up the Constitution. Nothing. But because he's not doing the bidding of the left, he's Hitler, as we said earlier. Elon Musk is, you really think that Elon Musk is trying to save the taxpayer? Well, here's the thing. You can go to doge.org and you can see all the charts yourself. You can see all the, in the government's own writing, you can see all the money that he has found that has just been pissed away on like crap like transgender operas in Malaysia or whatever, on promoting DEI in the Sudan or whatever. But you can go and see it all. And you know who never reports those documents and never shows them? CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times. And then you've got Bezos over at the Washington Post, who comes out last week and he says, hey, you know what? From now on, we're going to focus on two principled pillars: freedom of speech, or beg your pardon, free market capitalism and individual liberty, which of course encompasses freedom of speech and all the other freedoms that we enjoy here as Americans. Well, by God, you could have knocked old Philip Bump down with a feather and all the other editorial hacks at the Washington Post. They all lost it. How dare you ask us to promote free market capitalism and a free market and individual liberty? Who the hell do you think you are? I'll tell you who the hell he thinks he is. The owner of the paper. You don't like it? Pull a Zelensky. Get your ass thrown out of the office. That's what I would do, Philip Bump. I mean, they're just absolutely, and this is my point, they're losing. Once upon a time, they had a big megaphone. Once upon a time, they dictated the way you and I thought. Those times are gone, and they just haven't come to grips with it yet. So they keep going back to yesterday's, tactics, assuming it's going to work. It's not going to work. Just any more than Zelensky showing up dressed as a dictator to meet the president in hopes of getting money. Any more than that tactic is going to work. It's old, it's played, and the American people, by and large, fully support what Elon Musk is doing. Why everybody doesn't, I don't get it. Probably because hive mind, they've been told not to. So they don't. We've got more clips to get to, and your comments as well. Remember, if you're watching us now, no matter what platform you're on, maybe you're on Rumble, maybe you're on X, maybe you're on Facebook, comment, agree, disagree, whatever, and in the next segment, we'll go to that. We'll also have some other clips as well. You're watching The Right Hook. I am Steve Hook, and we'll be right back after this.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, for at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
There she is. That's her. She's an artist. She's a super producer. She is a Renaissance woman. That's Annie. And I would take advantage. Listen, she's a great artist. She's a hell of a producer. I mean, just look at the show. Look how professional it is. That's her doing, not mine. And she's a hell of a producer. So go to lutfstudios.com and get some art. And make sure you use that promo code RightHook for a special discount. And she does a lot of great themes, whether it's patriotism. She's also a Christian, so she does religious themed items. And it's all handmade, all one of a kind. And it's all wonderful. And you too can hang it up in your house and say, this is an Annie original. So jump on that, because not only is she a great producer, but she's a hell of an artist. So thank you, Annie, for that. I would invite her on, but she doesn't have audio today. So we'll have her on next time. But again, LUTF, that's Live Up to Freedom Studio, Christian faith, American values, whatever. Go in there and look at what you want and order it. And you can even say, hey, this is my color pattern, whatever. Just go to the website and you'll figure it all out and buy something from Andy today. God knows she's deserving of it, and you'll be very happy with the product. Okay, let's get back to some clips here and underscore this. John Meacham, once upon a time, was one of my favorite authors. I'm a big fan of biographies. I used to love. I love a lot of different. I like Ron Chernow is a great author. David McCallum, the late great David McCallum, of course, he's the one that wrote the great book on John Adams that HBO turned into a miniseries. Great miniseries, by the way, from several years back. And John Meacham wrote a great book about Andrew Jackson, and he's written some pretty good biographies. But here's the problem with John Meacham. He's become maybe he always was, and I just didn't know it, but he's become a liberal hack for the folks at CNN. And as such, because he is an author of great historical biographies, he's treated as an expert. It's almost like, oh, Dr. John Meacham, although he's not a doctor. But he goes on CNN, and this is pre what happened today in the Oval Office with Zelensky and Trump. But he's obviously siding with Zelensky and the continuation of this very, very destructive war. And here he is talking on CNN, completely ignoring one of the biggest elephants in the room, which we will touch on. Maybe it was MSNBC. You might be right. Annie just buzzed in my ear. It might be MSNBC. Maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what network he's on. He's still a shill. And here he is right now explaining Ukraine to the audience there, like they're a bunch of brain dead dolts that need to have this poured into their skull.
In more ways than one, it's a pre-1914 maneuver. It's a kind of imperialism. Basically, Zelensky's renting us, or we're renting ourselves to them for a certain amount of money and asset. The thing that I go back to again and again, and I have never heard a very good answer, and so we'll just frame the question one more time, is how did the party of the Reagan Republican Cold War tear down this wall, George H.W. Bush, this aggression will not stand, this ethos of protecting the interests of democracies against autocracies, when did that just suddenly change? Not when, but why? Why did that suddenly change? And to me, it's one of the central questions of the era, because the reorientation of American foreign policy from particularly on the center right and over, from we will stand for freedom, not universally, not saying we were somehow perfect before 2017 and now we're not, but what is it in the Trump canon that has put us more on the side of aggressors as opposed to those who ordinarily, for decades, would receive our support and our sympathy.
Jeez Louise. You see, this is the thing. What in Trump's canon has put the U.S. more on the side of the aggressor? How is trying to stop a war that has casualties counted in the millions siding with aggressors? I mean, how is that being an aggressor? Trump never said, I completely side with Putin, yet he's always been accused of that, even when it was a lie, when it was cooked up inside Obama's White House with Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice and Joe Biden. You can go up and look up the history of the Russian dossier, and we're not going to air that dirty laundry right now. But John Meacham gets this completely wrong. He says that Trump is, in his canon, is siding with aggressors, and he's saying, I just want the war to end. These people, man, I tell you what it is. And Joe Scarborough, what a great show for this guy to be on. Nobody watches it anymore. Nobody really ever did. And yet here's John Meacham basically being a hawk. We should throw billions more. What about boots on the ground? Oh, no. We don't want that. Just taxpayer money. Just taxpayer money, just munitions, just, heavier artillery, just, missiles, just stuff like that. Just stuff enough to keep the war going, a war that we know we can never win, but at least we're not siding with the aggressors. I mean, it's just, if an election were held today in Ukraine, Zelensky would get crushed. His popularity in Ukraine is lower than whale crap. He does not have a lot of support inside his own country, which is why he has canceled all elections, which is why he has outlawed 13 separate political parties, which is why he's had members of his own parliament arrested for disagreeing with him. So, I guess that doesn't count as an aggressor, but by God, he showed up today looking like a half-baked Che Guevara wannabe and got schooled because Trump wants peace. Okay, let's go. And here's another clip that showed. Now, this one is CNN, I know. Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper is a shill, is a hack, has been for a long, long time. His wife is. They're both deeply involved in the Democrat Party. Have been for a long time. You'd never know that because he never cops to it. I'll say this for Sean Hannity. Like him or hate him, at least he tells you exactly who he is. But these folks on CNN, they never do. Chuck Todd, when he was over at NBC, now thankfully he's no longer there, but Chuck Todd was another one. He would never, ever tell you how deeply involved in the DNC he was, and he was. So in 2020, Lara Trump, that's Eric Trump's wife, and obviously President Trump's daughter-in-law, goes on CNN with Jake, who has a new book out, by the way, called Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, the Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. But now we go back to the not-so-way-back machine where Lara Trump shows up on his show and states what was obvious to everyone, and that was Joe Biden is cognitively deteriorating before our eyes. And this was in 2020. Obviously, it only got worse for Joe Biden. Obviously, Jake Tapper felt that he could make a buck by writing a book about it. But that's today. This was what he said yesterday, 5 years ago, to Lara Trump on CNN. Go.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You have
to
no
watch somebody on stage
That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses. diagnosing
years ago,
politicians
of 10
from
years ago.
afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing
I'm
to
not
say.
diagnosing him. What I'm saying,
You
Jake,
just talked
is
about
that
a
we
cognitive
can clearly
decline.
see that Joe Biden
I
is
have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't.
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely
you,
feel
Laura
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure.
What a hack. What an absolute hack. You have no right. You don't have a medical license. You can't say, how dare you? Of course, I remember when CNN had a psychiatrist on the show almost every other day saying that the Congress should call for the 25th Amendment. They should boot Trump out. He's not. I remember that. Jake didn't seem to have a problem with that. Lara Trump goes on there in 2020. This is before the election, the 2020 election, by the way, and says, look, he's obviously suffering cognitive decline. And you'll recall back in those days, it was apparent to everyone. You didn't have to have a medical degree, Jake, to see that the guy was shaking hands with nobody on stage, turning to the left, turning to the right. Where do I go? How do I get off this stage? It was, we all witnessed it. 5 years later, a book comes out from Jake Tapper, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, The Cover-Up, and the Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Unbelievable. I mean, I would say the chutzpah, but it's not chutzpah, because chutzpah kind of connotates that, you got some bravery, you got some testicular fortitude. That's not what's going on here. What's going on here is a bunch of crap. He was lying because it was a campaign season, and he didn't want to acknowledge what everybody saw, that Joe Biden was slow Biden. So our final clip today is Caroline Leavitt, who is such, I looked through this cabinet. I looked through President Trump's cabinet, and every single cabinet member or press secretary, in the case of Caroline Leavitt, they're all light years ahead of who Joe Biden had in there. Light years ahead. God, he's put together a great team. But here's Caroline Leavitt talking about Jake's new book with Jesse Waters on Fox News. I think it was last night. Go.
How honorable is it for Jake Tapper to participate in the Joe Biden cover-up and then get paid to write a book about the Joe Biden cover-up?
Kudos to Jake, because as you said, he was paid for lying. Now I guess he's paid for finally telling the truth. But he owes Lara Trump, my dear friend and the daughter-in-law of the president, an apology. You played the clip, and he tried to get the American people not to believe our own eyes. And there's a lot more journalists in this city who did as well. They lost a lot of credibility because of it, and Jake Tapper is surely one of them.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And I love Jesse Waters, where he says, how is it that this guy played a major role in the cover-up and now writes a book about the cover-up? Well, Jesse, I can answer that question. Hell, I answered it before. It's the hive mind of the left. It's the hive mind of the left. They think and act as one. They're NPCs, which is non-player computer-controlled. If you ever play video games, you know what an NPC is. That's who the left is. They take their marching orders. They believe what they're told about Trump because it confers their own hatred of the man. And they don't bother to do any, they're the most misinformed. They're the most arrogantly misinformed group of people I've ever seen. And I should know, I was a member of that clan once upon a time. Long time ago, mind you. But I do remember once upon a time that I would only believe something that propped up my particular view of the world. Then when I started digging in, I realized that, wait a minute, this is not true. This is not true. And for me, the worm turned, I've mentioned this before, but for me, the worm turned in 1996 when I saw them all slam and drag through the mud any woman that accused Bill Clinton of sexual harassment or even rape in the case of Juanita Broaddrick. They dragged those ladies through the mud, this party that is all about championing women's rights. And where are they now? All these years later, 19 years later, now they're now they're championing transgender rights. And once again, kind of saying women take the back seat here. It's pretty pathetic. And what's really sad about it is that a lot of these folks, I'm convinced, and I'm not talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the voters. A lot of them know that they're being lied to, but they can't bring themselves to admit it, because to admit it would be to destroy their entire ideology. I'm not trying to put on my Dr. Phil hat here, but I mean, good God, you'd had to have been blind, deaf, and you'd had to have been the Who's Tommy not to see that Joe Biden was suffering cognitive decline from 2000, and it only got worse. So bad so that Jake Tapper totally turns it around and writes a book about it. It's pretty stunning. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. God knows I did. I always do here on The Right Hook. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 4 p.m., followed by Friday at 4 p.m. And you can find us, well, wherever you found us now, we'll be there again. And we thank our good friends at Ex American News, our buddies at Rumble, and everywhere else. And mostly we thank you. And of course, Annie back controlling all the levers and stuff. Thank you. Until next time, have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.